This past season exposed some teams.
Right situation, is that Green Bay or is that somewhere else? I'm not sure. But I don't think you should shut down any, opportunity.
There are a lot of rosters out there that are looking like they could do with a fresh start, if you know what I mean. So today, here are 10 NFL teams that have to clean house and begin a rebuild ASAP. New England Patriots. Patriots fans aren't used to hearing this, but, the team is in a state of disarray at the moment. By the time the 2023 season rolls around, it'll have been 5 years since their last playoff victory. I need you to think about that for a second. And to make matters even worse, the team has now missed the postseason in 2 of the last 3 years. Bill Belichick is the greatest coach of all time, so the Patriots will never be terrible as long as he's around. Unless he personally decides it's time to suck and tank for a few years. New England will always have a great defense as long as Belichick is there, and that automatically keeps them competitive. They always boast a top-notch running game as well, so you know that group is good enough to squeeze out 7 to 10 wins in any given year. But Belichick needs to be honest with himself and realize this team's championship window is long gone. Tom Brady isn't around to save the day anymore, and Belichick's inability to find a true game-changing wideout has really started to catch up to him. There is no way these Patriots hang in there with top AFC clubs like the Kansas City Chiefs, Cincinnati Bengals, Baltimore Ravens, Buffalo Bills, or Miami Dolphins with this current core. Belichick should try to move out as many big contracts as possible. Hunter Henry, Kendrick Bourne, Jonnu Smith, Jalen Mills, Devontae Parker, Dietrich Wise. Look, the list just goes on and on. Don't go buying any more big fish in free agency. It is time for a full-scale rebuild in Foxborough, not just a simple retooling on the fly. Green Bay Packers. Green Bay fans don't want to hear this, but if Aaron Rodgers decides against retiring this year, that front office should probably just do what's necessary and move on without him. The Packers have had more than enough time to win a Super Bowl with Rodgers, but the team finds a way to blow it every single year. He's not getting any younger, and the front office continuously refuses to go all in with A-Rod. Now, to their credit, they have always had an eye for the long-term future of their franchise. They are absolutely loaded with young talent on offense and defense, but the QB himself will be 40 by the end of next season. I think now is the time for the Packers to maximize a potential return for Rodgers by dealing him to a QB-needy team that would be willing to send back multiple first-round picks in return. And while they're at it, why not shop other pricey veterans like Devondre Campbell, David Bakhtiari, Kenny Clark, and Preston Smith? The Packers can try 1 or 2 more kicks at the can with Rodgers, or they can just trade him, rebuild, and use the draft capital to build a sustainable long-term contender. Hey, maybe Jordan Love is actually your guy. You don't know until you try. You can just tell that Rodgers isn't all that thrilled to be a Packer anymore. So it makes sense for the two sides to call it off and seek a fresh start. Los Angeles Rams. The Rams went all in for 5 years, and it paid off with a Super Bowl 56 championship. No regrets. Championship flags fly forever. But the Rams' quickest and easiest path to pushing for another Super Bowl does not consist of keeping this core intact. It consists of beginning a scorched earth rebuild right away. Matthew Stafford will be 35 next season, and his recent injury history is rather concerning. Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey are still on the top of their games, but they're also not getting any younger. And ditto that for superstar wide receiver Cooper Kupp. The Rams can start afresh in the 2024 draft since they'll actually own their early round picks. If they tank now, they might get a chance to take Heisman Trophy winner Caleb Williams. I'm not saying the Rams have to trade Kupp, Donald, and Ramsey, but they owe it to themselves to at least see what the trade market has to offer. Because, let's face it, even with all these guys, this team isn't going to win another Super Bowl. They just don't have the depth anymore, and their lack of draft picks in recent years does not help. I'm sure those 3 superstars would like to continue competing for championships, though. So if they can help recoup some much-needed draft capital for the Rams organization, trading them to a contender seems like a win for all parties involved. Or the Rams can try to squeeze out any remaining competitive window they have with an aging core. But, it's pretty hard to see that happening. This roster just isn't as deep or as explosive as that 2021 group that won it all. Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders have tried to build around Derek Carr, and yeah, it's just not working. The Devontae Adams trade, the Chandler Jones signing, and the Josh McDaniels hiring was supposed to help this team reach that next level in 2022, but it never came to be. McDaniels' decision to bench Carr for the final 2 games all but confirms that Vegas is moving on from him after this season. But you know, that shouldn't be it. Vegas needs to do a lot more than just trade away its franchise QB. Look, Adams is great, but I think now's the time to tank. Maybe see if there's a taker for his contract. Chop Waller and Hunter Renfrow, and please do not overspend to retain Josh Jacobs either. Yes, he was great this past year, and he'll only be 25 years old next season, but when's the last time one of these monster running back contracts worked out? The main point is, the Raiders need to try something different here. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Mark Davis needs to put an end to it. Clean house and commence the long-term rebuild now, before you endure another 10+ years of mediocrity and failure. New Orleans Saints. Rather than start from scratch after Sean Payton's resignation, the Saints tried remaining a contender in a crowded NFC. They promoted defensive coordinator Dennis Allen to the head coaching role, brought back Jameis Winston, and added veterans Tyrann Mathieu and Jarvis Landry to the roster. New Orleans even made a trade with the Philadelphia Eagles to obtain an extra first-round pick in 2022, surrendering a 2023 first as part of the trade. With their 2 first-rounders, the Saints took Chris Olave and Trevor Penning. But the Saints were one of football's biggest disappointments in 2022. Winston started the first 3 games, but was kept out with a back injury, and Allen started Andy Dalton the rest of the way. Michael Thomas once again missed most of the year, as did star corner Marshawn Lattimore. The Saints finished 7-10, marking their first losing season since 2016. With an aging roster, few young cornerstone players, and no first-round pick in 2023, it's time for the team to start up a full-on rebuild. This team needs to get younger on defense, cut ties with Thomas, and consider trading the likes of Alvin Kamara, Cameron Jordan, and Demario Davis for picks. The championship window is officially closed with Drew Brees and Sean Payton long gone. Now it's time to rebuild from the ground up. Arizona Cardinals. General Manager Steve Keim resigned to focus on his health, and head coach Cliff Kingsbury was let go less than a year after receiving an extension through 2027. Yep, that's the Arizona Cardinals in a nutshell for ya. Whether Cardinals fans like it or not, Kyler Murray is here to stay after signing his mammoth extension last offseason. J.J. Watt is retiring and A.J. Green isn't coming back. So it looks like the rebuild is already underway. The Cardinals need to also trade aging wideouts DeAndre Hopkins and build the offense around Murray and Marquise Brown. They should even explore the trade market for star safety Budda Baker while they're at it. There's just no way the Redbirds, as currently constructed, compete with all those heavyweights in the NFC. This is the time to engage in a short-term rebuild and fix up the supporting cast around Murray, because this current group just isn't good enough to compete right now for a Super Bowl. Someone better tell that to owner Michael Bidwell, because the Cardinals have a long history of condoning mediocrity. Washington Commanders. So Ron Rivera is going to remain the head coach of the Commanders. Okay, yeah, that's fine. But he and GM Martin Mayhew need to actually come up with a long-term plan here. Being comfortable in the mushy middle is not the solution. Rivera started out by firing OC Scott Turner, so hey, that's a start. But the Commanders need to overhaul a lot of this roster. Their front 7 is elite, but the secondary, offensive line, and quarterback position, well, they all need some work. You could even argue that Washington would be best off rebuilding entirely by trading away several top players like Daron Payne, Jonathan Allen, and Antonio Gibson. Tanking for 1 or 2 years and getting your next franchise QB in the draft isn't the worst option here. Washington went all in for Carson Wentz, and it backfired. The only solution here is to find a young gem in the draft, which means rebuilding, or at least retooling, by moving out some of your best players for future draft capital. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers barely won the pathetic NFC South with an 8-9 record, and you know, that is hardly an accomplishment. If Tom Brady opts to continue playing in 2023, it surely won't be as a member of the Bucs. He'll want to go somewhere with better offensive weapons and a coaching staff that will better build the offense around his game. But you know, it's not just Brady. The offensive line is getting old. The front 7 is old. Mike Evans isn't getting younger. Lavonte David has to slow down eventually too. As it stands, this is not a long-term playoff contender. GM Jason Light built this Tampa team into a winner, so he does deserve the opportunity to rebuild them. He'd make a mistake by choosing to bring in a veteran QB to help the team continue to compete for the NFC South. He needs to start afresh and draft a young quarterback who can help this team win long-term. The longer the Bucs delay the inevitable rebuild, the worse they'll be in the coming years. Light needs to read the room and tear it all down as soon as Brady decides he's not coming back, which could be any day now. Tennessee Titans. The Titans had a nice little run with Mike Vrabel, Ryan Tannehill, and Derrick Henry, but all good things must come to an end. Tennessee had the AFC South division in their hands, sitting pretty at 7-3 with 10 weeks to go. Then they collapsed entirely and lost 7 in a row, including the winner-go-home Week 18 contest to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Tennessee stood little chance once Tannehill went down for the year with a season-ending ankle injury. And the issues in the secondary, along with the lack of playmaking wide receivers, also led to the team's undoing. Oh yeah, and GM John Robinson was fired late in the season, which was all sorts of weird. The Jaguars are on the up, and the division should be theirs for the next little while. Although the Houston Texans will soon be making some noise if they get Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. Derrick Henry isn't going to be in his prime for much longer. Tennessee's horrible drafting in the first round has finally caught up to them. And you know, it's time to accept that the ship has sailed on a Super Bowl opportunity with this group. Mike Vrabel is a top-tier coach who should be kept around for the rebuild, but Tennessee has to look at moving out its key veterans with the idea of tanking ASAP. Indianapolis Colts. Not sure if the Colts need a reminder, but hey, you know what? We'll say it anyway. Stop picking up aging, past their prime QBs in hopes of them bringing you to a Super Bowl. Phillip Rivers was one and done. Carson Wentz wasn't it. Matt Ryan was somehow even worse. So when does GM Chris Ballard take the hint and actually draft and develop a young quarterback instead of relying on a past his prime veteran to get the job done? And it's not just QB where the Colts need a reboot. They should think about rebuilding the offensive line that went from elite to embarrassing in one offseason. They should explore the idea of trading away the likes of DeForest Buckner, Shaquille Leonard, and Michael Pittman Jr. Yes, those three are in their primes, but they could get a ton of draft capital for players of their caliber. The other option, don't rebuild at all and continue falling short of the playoffs. The decision is yours, Jim Irsay. What do you say? But which other NFL teams need to clean house and rebuild ASAP? Join us in the comment section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton. And hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next time.